And I just wanted to start again thanking the Brecht Forum and how crucial it is that we have a space that enables us to have these kind of discussions. Bertolt Brecht is one of my favorite playwrights, and I think it's appropriate that we do this here because Brecht actually left the United States of America, where he had come as a refugee from the fascism of Europe, didn't have the best time in Hollywood, but then when the McCarthy era came, he was called before the HUAC hearings, and Brecht was not a party member, but he was a communist, and is probably one of the few people who ever left the United States of America to go to East Germany for artistic freedom. And so if we want to understand what McCarthyism is or what red baiting is, it's a powerful thing. It's so powerful that it took arguably the greatest playwright of 20th century Europe and made him return to a country governed by the Stasi so he could put on plays. And so the question, I think, which Randy bring about, what is this anti-communism, why is it so important? And I also think this bears pretty directly on inside-outside strategies. In American history, the greatest proponent of attempting to build reform struggles while building an independent political base was the Communist Party. And its heyday was in the 1930s, and it led movements here in New York of hundreds of thousands of people. And it got real reforms. I mean, we're talking rent control, right? You know, Stan Levinson, you know, that's a hero. That was a Jewish communist who went and fought for civil rights in this country, was really out there on the ground. And this has been written out of the history of this country in a lot of ways. One of the things that happened is it's not always clear in a society what the range of political discussion is going to be. And for a period, communists had access to the White House during the FDR administration, and this was real. And when things switched around, they decided that was not going to be allowed anymore. That this thing called communism, you could talk about socialism a little, you could talk about whatever, but when it came to challenging capitalism, white supremacy, and U.S. imperialism, those things were off the table. And I don't just want to use rhetoric because in the United States of America, these are key concepts in terms of how we structure and understand our country. There was this movement of communism that had one foot in both camps. On one level, it wanted democratic reforms, and on another was actually fighting for a fundamentally new society where people weren't made objects but were the masters of their own destiny. And I think we can look around the world right now, and it's not just here where we face this problem. We have a neoliberal capitalist society that's failing to meet the needs of the vast majority of people. On one hand, we have people like Glenn Beck, right, what we'll call the fascist hordes, and they are out there, and they are genuinely dangerous. You know, I don't think this is a crowd that we need to engage in that discussion, but when you look at him, you say, that is my enemy. There's no confusion about that. This person thinks some people are not invested with rights and other people are fully entitled. So part of what happens is when the left becomes the defenders of liberal imperialism, it is the far right that always makes the gains. So this gives us a difficult situation because the far right is really dangerous and they really will kill us. And at the same time, these liberal, you know, Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer, our New York Democrats, these are not our allies and we're not actually in a coalition with them. So if we're in a situation where we go out to the masses of working people, let alone on a global scale, because again, they've already made clear that Arabs can die and the war will continue. If we go out to people in this country as primarily defenders of a liberal capitalist social order, many people outside the self-identified left will only find succor from the far right. And we've seen this happen before in history, and it happened in Germany, and it happened in Europe, and it's happened over large parts of this earth. Right, where people demanding democratic rights were not able to build the independent political positions of working class and oppressed nations. If we aren't able to build independent and combative organizations able to do that, we will always fight on our enemy's terrain, and we will continue to lose every reform and radical battle as we have our entire life. My entire life has seen liberals in charge of what we can fight for while we defend a bankrupt welfare system, bankrupt schools, and a broken society. And we're not getting it, and people drop out of politics and learn to fight for and do for self. And we have to go right up into the face of that. We have to be utterly combative, and we have to come together and build these, as we say, we're going to argue over independence and what that means. But if we cannot engage in a systematic fight against the entire ruling regime and not just the people who poke their fingers in our eyes, we're going to get steamrolled. And the last thing I just sort of wanted to mention that is I don't believe politics is a spectrum. I don't believe we're going to pull the Obama administration anywhere. They know exactly what they're about. What he promised is what he's delivering. Goldman Sachs is in charge of the economy, just like they were under Bush, and the same people are running our military, and they're expanding, I want to say it again, they're expanding this war into Pakistan. And if people don't quite understand what that means, it's over 100 million people, and they're not going to put up with it. So the fight's coming. And the last point, I think it's wonderful to be on a panel where people are going to disagree, and I think it's important that we not reproduce the mistakes of the past. In particular, I mean sectarianism and moralizing political discussions. As with Harmony, I also knew Van, and when he renounced the communist movement and embraced capitalism and embraced this state, I disagreed, but again, we can meet people down the road, and we don't have to apply scorched earth tactics to each other. Our enemy is the system, and I just really want to say that because it's going to be a tough fight that we're entering in these coming days. Thank you.